Generally speaking, it is best to simply view the people who are aiming to watch you or project their shadow or their anima or their animus onto you from the shadows as a phenomenon in your experience. It is simply a fact that these people who are not totally in control of themselves are participating in the construct of this reality, the simulation, whatever you want to call it. And this phenomenon that we experience as people who are free spirits, because make no mistake, the free spirit, when they show kindness, when they show compassion, it can be perceived as malice, and it can be perceived as though there are people who are wanting to hear a message. And the person who is a free spirit sees that they're still wanting to hold on to their victim mentality. And so they will just turn away from them. And the person with the victim mentality only affirms their own projections onto the people. And so while these people who are actually a phenomenon of the construct watch you from the shadows, you need not worry about whether or not your words or your silence is going to affect them, because I'm not saying not to see them as a human being or anything of the sort. I'm just saying that it is simply a fact that they are so caught up in the construct of this simulated reality that, and I don't mean that in computer science terms either. I don't mean that. I mean that this is a biodigital construct and simulation, and whether or not they were programmers of the reality or the demiurge or the the Saturnians, whatever it is that you perceive this as the physical plane, I think that the physical plane is meant for us to be experienced to some degree. It's meant for us to be experienced so that we can understand what not to do just as much as what to do. And the people that are having this proclivity toward watching you and seeing you from the shadows, they don't always know what they're doing. Like the people that are trying to curate themselves onto you or bleed themselves onto your name the most, they're the ones that don't really know what's happening to them. And they just simply act because they are acting that way. It's kind of like the women who are participating in all of these excessively promiscuous behavior. The reason why women are so deeply misguided nowadays is because their lust has been burning away their spiritual desire for fulfillment. And the reason why so many men are incapable as proper leaders nowadays is because lust and the need for feeling heroic has, even though they haven't really done much, has outgrown, not even outgrown, it's outpaced their desire for fulfillment. Now you might ask, well, how is it the case that you can have a desire for fulfillment? How is it the case that you can perceive the reality in such a way that you can actually even have that desire for fulfillment? Well, you must understand also that he who yearns for meaning in the knowledge that he attains must also sooner or later realize that the integration thereof is not always worth asking the questions. You don't really have to know certain things. And that is the liberating truth, as well as the, perhaps some people think of it as nihilism. I've had many critiques recently and many polarizing behaviors from people recently. It seems about half of the people that are Regal change old timers are very much so in tune with what I'm saying, and they're being affirmed in their understanding, and they're elevating, and they're seeing beyond the physical plane even more so. And it's the people who are the other half who are having perhaps a hard time with what I've been discussing recently. It's almost as if they are yearning to be victims of their narrative. They want me to tell them how chosen they are. They want me to tell them how special they are. They want me to be a certain thing in their perceived reality. And to me, I don't see that as fair or comprehensible at all. I've never really asked anybody to be a certain way in my reality because I feel like that's my way, that I have to have it my way. I've never felt that kind of entitlement, especially with a creator in the digital universe, like I've in the digital civilization that is YouTube, that is X, that is Instagram, and all these other platforms. I've never felt the desire to control these people, even if I disagree with them. I don't even always talk about my disagreements with people. I just, if I really truly don't agree with people and I see their perspective as ludicrous, just something that is almost embarrassing to even discuss, I just treat it as noise and I move on. I don't need to announce that, oh, this is this or that is that. I don't need to announce that. I don't need to announce anything of the sort because I know that I would be, if what I think is true and what they think is false, that means that I'm operating at a more aligned, higher frequency and a higher altitude of being anyway. And why would I care? It's like the whole quote of the lion doesn't concern themselves with the opinions of sheep. You know, if you're really a lion that you say that you want to be, if you really truly believe you're a chosen one or you're a this or a that, and you define what you are all the time, if you have to define yourself so much and you have to proclaim that all the time, do you really think you are that? You know, are you really that? I don't know. It's difficult to say. Because at this point in my experience, because this is always a process, once you accept that this is always a process, everything becomes a lot more freeing. And again, it's the free spirit mentality that it's not even a mentality. I suppose it is to some degree a mentality, but it's like many people believe that they are building architectures of spiritual prowess and radiance and greatness and beauty. It's like my parable of the lighthouse. And this is one of the reasons why I've thought very much about this topic of the shadows and the people watching from the shadows, and how they just haven't fully integrated their own shadow or their anima or animus. And the parable, if anybody's not familiar with this and they didn't see it from my YouTube posts or my X posts from last week, essentially there's a master architect, and this master architect, he builds the most extravagant lighthouse on these very jagged pieces of rock near the most dangerous port known to man. And this is a pure lighthouse made of pure gold. It's the most beautiful, radiant. Everybody within 1,000 leagues of this place could potentially see the light emanating from this thing. And soon afterward, the lighthouse is completed and builded by the master architect. And the master architect says something along the lines of, I've built a lighthouse that no one can reach. And he fills himself with a little bit of pride, and then he realizes, oh, I've built a lighthouse that no one can reach. So what's the message behind that? You know, what's the story? Well, I was inspired by this to write this is because of my own situation that I felt with a lot of what I've done with the YouTube channel, as well as my X account, as well as the Regal Change Academy that is closing in a couple weeks. And as well as just my one-on-ones and the Godlike Mastery offer, etc. And I thought to myself, all of these things that I've created is like that lighthouse. It's beautiful, it's radiant, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do. But it did exactly what it was supposed to do. I didn't realize the juxtaposition until it was built. And I didn't realize the juxtaposition until it was actually there and it happened. That I realized that, oh, it's not really supposed to be built. It's not really supposed to be, like, you never really needed to build the lighthouse to reach people anyway. And there was some aspect of me that wanted people to reach this place, even though it was on these very jagged rocks and it was very hard to see. But the lighthouse itself was there. The light, the radiance of the light was there. And it was available for everybody and still is. I would like my work to be continued, of course. And I do see this as something that it's not just me talking into a camera anymore. This is, in a sense, philosophical art. That's the way that I see it. And I see it as a privilege and a honor and a great sense of ingenuity and novelty of life that I can even experience the monetization of my own mind through me just talking about ideas and talking about things. And I understand that there are going to be many people that are not going to be as prone to understanding what I'm saying, but the way that I see it is someone was giving me a critique recently, and they told me that essentially that I'm not going to get as many views. And I said, well, I'm going to say what I want to say, and if it means less views, then so be it. But I'm confident that there are more people that actually want to hear what I have to say and that are actually willing to listen than there are people that don't want to view this type of stuff. So the way that I see it is that if you want to watch from the shadows, I mean, you can. I'm not going to stop you, but you're just kind of a weirdo. You're just kind of a weirdo. If you're just someone watching from the shadows on anybody's life, on anybody's work, on anybody, like doing anything and not commenting or not liking, anytime I see something that I genuinely feel an engagement with, I will comment or like or do, because I know that that content person, that content creator, number one, it's to support them, but number two, it's because I'm not just going to be someone that's just hiding in the shadows. However, I do recognize and understand that sometimes we get so attached to the identity. I've even wondered about not even displaying my face anymore because I don't want what I'm saying to be deterred by my identity that you perceive. And the thing is that my identity is not this. Like, I am more than this physical body. And it's great to have a physical body that you can call it, a meat suit or an avatar or whatever you want to call it. And it's great to have it, but it doesn't mean that it is me. Like, it's not me. And I've even had women in my life where they get so upset that they can't control me, but they love that they can't control me. And they're like, I just want you. And it's like, well, you don't though. You don't want me. And you can't have what's really me. You can't have it. And it's not because I'm even unwilling to give it. It's that I am the me that no one else can ever truly fathom or understand. Just as much as you are the you that no one can ever truly fathom or understand. There is an objective reality that is underlining this whole existence, but it can only be perceived subjectively. And even mathematics and physics and quantum physics, I've been thinking and pondering so much about these things recently, and you know, it's a wonder how mathematics used to be like the golden ratio, right? Like, this is a pattern in recognizing the fabric of reality, but is it recognizing the truth of the fabric? There's the truth, there's a reality of the fabric and the fabric of reality, but what about the truth of the fabric? Is there a truth of the fabric, or is there not a truth of the fabric? And this is where the people who are shadow beings and all that, like, they come into play. And that is another topic entirely. But the point that I really want to make here is that when someone is trying to watch you from the shadows and they want to still control you, even though they don't really understand who you are, recognize that their projections of their own shadow or anima or animus do not really make a mark on who you are. Their lack of healing and their need to bleed on your name does not necessarily mean that you're the issue. And at the same time, though, you have to be aware that maybe you are the issue. Maybe your perception is entirely skewed. Maybe you're looking at something and you don't have all the data points that you could if you just were willing to change your perception. But a lot of people don't want to be willing to change their perception because that is very, it's hard to do, and it takes courage. And to be quite frank, I commend every spirit, whether they are free spirits or aiming to be free spirits, I commend you for your bravery in aiming to be in the truth and to let die what is false. And so with all that being said, I hope that this message was useful and insightful for you. Do sign up for the Godlike Mastery offer that I have, or the one-on-one sessions. I know I did just mention that the Regal Change Academy is closing, so I do have some other things in mind for the future. But, recently, for those of you that are still interested in this type of thing and wanting to know more about it, I essentially, especially with the parable of the lighthouse, I got to the point in which, with the lighthouse, I was thinking, for the past 3 years, I've perceived reality and truth in a specific kind of way. And now I have, with the Regal timeline theory, and all of the Regal Change old timers will know about this, now with the Regal timeline theory, it's not that I was entirely false, but it's not that I was entirely in the truth either. And so what I have to say is, well, then that means that everything that I built was not entirely false, but it wasn't entirely true either. So how do I rectify that? And so now I'm making adjustments and I'm moving forward proactively in a way that is going to more so align with who I am and not what I want to be. So with all that being said, peace until next time.